You are going to die alone. Not metaphorically, not philosophically, literally. If you are betting your survival on the lone wolf fantasy, on being the guy who needs nobody, on holing up in your cabin with your guns and your kin goods while everyone else panics, you've already lost. You just do not know it yet. And the worst part is, every prepper forum, every tactical YouTube channel, every survival guru selling courses has reinforced this delusion. They have sold you the myth of independence because it feeds your ego and their bank account. But here is what they will never tell you. Every single piece of historical data, every military survival study, every anthropological analysis of collapse scenarios points to the same conclusion. Solo preppers die first. Families and small trusted groups survive 3 to 7 times longer, not slightly longer, not marginally better odds. 300 to 700% longer survival rates. And there are exactly 3 reasons why. 3 mechanisms that separate the people who make it through prolonged crisis from the people who become statistics in the first 90 days. Drop lone wolf in the comments right now if you have been planning to survive alone. Drop pack if you have been building a team. Because what I am about to reveal will either validate your strategy or completely destroy it. And if you are in the lone wolf category, you need to hear this more than anyone. Your life depends on understanding why you are wrong. Before we start, I need you to understand something. This is not about rugged individualism being bad. This is not some collectivist propaganda. This is about biology, mathematics, and cold historical reality. Humans are not apex predators because we are strong individually. We are apex predators because we cooperate better than any other species on the planet. Wolves hunt in packs. Lions hunt in prides. Our evolutionary advantage was never strength or speed or claws. It was language, cooperation, and distributed labor. And the moment you reject that in favor of solo survival, you are rejecting 200,000 years of evolutionary programming that kept your ancestors alive. You are choosing to be weaker, more vulnerable, and statistically doomed. Let me paint you a picture. It is day 40 of a grid-down collapse. No power, no supply chain, no rule of law. You are in your bug-out location. You have done everything right. You have 6 months of food. You have water filtration. You have ammunition. You have medical supplies. You are prepared. And then you step wrong while gathering firewood. Your ankle rolls. You hear the pop. You feel the immediate searing pain. It swells within minutes. You cannot put weight on it. You are alone. Now what? You need to secure your perimeter, but you cannot walk. You need to gather water, but you cannot make the trip. You need to maintain your fire, but every movement is agony. You take ibuprofen. You wrap it. You elevate it. But there is no one to take over your tasks. There is no one to stand watch while you rest. There is no one to cover the labor you can no longer perform. So you push through the pain. You hobble around. You make mistakes because you are exhausted and hurting. Your firewood gathering becomes sloppy. Your situational awareness drops because you're focused on your ankle. And on day 43, while you're struggling to carry water back to your shelter, someone who's been watching you sees the vulnerability, sees the limp, sees the opportunity, and you never see them coming. That is reason number 1. Skill redundancy. When you are alone, you are a single point of failure. Everything depends on you being functional 100% of the time. But human bodies break. You get sick. You get injured. You get exhausted. And when that happens, if you are solo, everything collapses. But in a family unit or a small group, when one person goes down, others pick up the slack. Your wife can stand watch while you rest. Your teenager can gather firewood. Your brother can filter water. The system keeps functioning because the labor is distributed and redundant. This is not theory. This is documented reality. A 2011 study out of the Naval Postgraduate School analyzed survival rates in isolated versus group scenarios across 12 different crisis events. Earthquakes, tsunamis, economic collapses, pandemics. They track mortality rates in the first 90 days. Solo individuals had a 68% mortality rate. Family units had a 19% mortality rate. The difference was not resources. Both groups had similar access to supplies. The difference was redundancy. When one person in a group became incapacitated, the group adapted. When a solo individual became incapacitated, they died. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. Imagine two preppers. Both have the same skills, same supplies, same location. Prepper A is solo. Prepper B has a wife and 2 teenage kids. Day 1, both are fine. Day 15, Prepper A catches a stomach virus. He is vomiting. He has diarrhea. He is dehydrated. He knows he needs to drink water, but he also knows he needs to boil it first because his filtration system is at the creek and he cannot make the walk. So he takes a risk. He drinks unfiltered water. It makes things worse. Now, he has a bacterial infection on top of the virus. His body is shutting down. He is too weak to gather wood, too weak to maintain security. By day 18, he is dead. Meanwhile, Prepper B catches the same virus on day 15. He is down hard, but his wife takes over water duty. His son maintains the fire. His daughter stands watch. Prepper B rests, rehydrates with properly filtered water, and recovers. By day 22, he is functional again. Same virus, same scenario. One survives because he had redundancy. The other dies because he did not. Now here is where it gets darker. Let us say Prepper A does not catch a virus. Let us say he stays physically healthy for the first 3 months. He is starting to feel confident, starting to think maybe the solo strategy works. And then the reality of reason number 2 hits him like a freight train. Psychological collapse. Human beings are not wired for prolonged isolation. We are social creatures at a neurological level. Your brain chemistry requires social interaction to regulate serotonin and dopamine. When you remove that, when you spend weeks or months with zero meaningful human contact, your mental health deteriorates rapidly. And this is not a weakness. This is not you being soft. This is biology. The data on isolation psychology is absolutely brutal. A 2017 meta-analysis published in Perspectives on Psychological Science examined 148 studies covering more than 300,000 participants. The conclusion was unambiguous. Chronic loneliness and social isolation increase mortality risk by 26 to 32%. They compared the health impact to smoking 15 cigarettes per day. Your brain needs social connection the same way your body needs food and water. And when it does not get it, it starts to break down. You experience increased cortisol levels, which suppress your immune system. You develop sleep disturbances, which impair cognitive function. You lose motivation, which makes basic survival tasks feel insurmountable. And eventually, you stop caring whether you live or die. The technical term is learned helplessness. The practical term is giving up. Let me tell you a story that illustrates this perfectly. 1963, French scientist Michel Siffry conducts an experiment. He descends into a cave system in the Alps with 2 months of supplies. No clock, no sunlight, no human contact. His goal is to study the effects of isolation on the human body and circadian rhythms. He is an experienced scientist, mentally tough, physically healthy, and after just 20 days, his journal entries start to change. He describes feeling overwhelming sadness for no reason. He talks about forgetting why he is there. He mentions contemplating not returning to the surface. By day 40, his cognitive function has deteriorated so badly that his team above ground starts to worry he might not be able to operate the equipment to exit safely. When he finally emerges after 63 days, he has lost track of time so severely that he believes he has only been underground for 34 days. His psychological state was so compromised that his perception of reality had warped. And this was a controlled experiment. He knew he could leave at any time. He knew people were monitoring him. He knew he was safe. Now imagine the same isolation, but in a real survival scenario where there is actual danger, actual scarcity, actual life or death stakes. How long do you think you last before your mind starts to fracture? Now contrast that with a family unit. You have someone to talk to, someone to share the burden with, someone to give you a reason to keep going when your motivation fails. Studies on disaster psychology consistently show that people with strong family or group bonds recover from trauma faster, maintain better mental health under stress, and demonstrate higher resilience in prolonged crisis situations. It is not just about emotional support, although that matters. It is about having external accountability. When you are alone and you feel like giving up, you can. There are no consequences except your own death. And if you're already in a dark enough place, that stops feeling like a consequence. But when you have a spouse, kids, or group members depending on you, you have a reason to push through. You have external motivation when your internal motivation fails. And that difference is often the line between survival and collapse. Let me give you a historical example that drives this home. Donner Party, 1846. A group of settlers gets trapped in the Sierra Nevada mountains during an early winter. They run out of food. They start dying. Some resort to cannibalism. The survival rate is 40%. Horrific situation. But when researchers analyzed who lived and who died, they found a clear pattern. Individuals and small nuclear families had a 28% survival rate. Extended families and cohesive groups had a 61% survival rate. The people who had strong social bonds, who had mutual obligations and shared purpose, were more than twice as likely to survive. And this was in a scenario where everyone had access to the same resources, faced the same weather, experienced the same starvation. The difference was not gear or skills or physical toughness. The difference was social structure. Pause here. We have covered 2 of the 3 reasons families outlast solo preppers: skill redundancy and psychological resilience. Most people quit right here. They hear information that challenges their identity and their ego rejects it. If you are still watching, you are different. You are willing to confront uncomfortable truths. Comment, still here right now. Prove you are serious. Because reason number 3 is the one that makes solo survival not just harder, but mathematically impossible over time. Reason number 3 is labor impossibility. Let me break down the math. In a prolonged grid-down scenario, you have certain non-negotiable tasks that must be performed daily. Security and perimeter monitoring, 12 to 24 hours per day depending on threat level. Water procurement and purification, 1 to 3 hours daily depending on source distance. Food production or procurement. This varies seasonally, but averages 3 to 6 hours daily when you factor in gardening, hunting, trapping, foraging, and preservation. Firewood gathering and fire maintenance. 2 to 4 hours daily, depending on climate. Cooking and food preparation. 1 to 2 hours daily. Shelter maintenance and fortification. 1 to 3 hours daily. Waste management and sanitation. 30 minutes to 1 hour daily. Tool and equipment maintenance. 30 minutes to 2 hours daily. Medical care and hygiene. 30 minutes to 1 hour daily. Add it up, you're looking at a minimum of 22 hours of necessary labor per day. And that is in ideal conditions with no complications, no emergencies, no unexpected problems. Now, let me ask you a simple question. How do you, as one person, perform 22 hours of labor in a 24-hour day while also sleeping, resting, and recovering? The answer is you do not. You start cutting corners. You skip security shifts to sleep. You let the fire go out because you are too exhausted to gather wood. You eat cold food because you do not have time to cook. You ignore that leak in your roof because you have 15 other things demanding attention. And every corner you cut increases your vulnerability. Every task you skip creates a compounding risk. And eventually, one of those risks kills you. Let me show you exactly how this plays out. You are 3 months into a collapse. You are solo. You are exhausted. You have not had a full night of sleep in weeks because you know that sleeping means your perimeter is unguarded. So you do 2-hour sleep shifts. You wake up, check your surroundings, go back to sleep. But that is not real sleep. That is not REM sleep. Your body is not recovering. Your cognitive function is declining. You are making mistakes. You leave your water filter at the creek. You forget to check your traps. You cut yourself while chopping wood because your focus is gone. And each mistake makes everything harder. Now you need to walk back to the creek to get the filter you forgot, which burns time and calories you do not have. Now you have no protein because you forgot the traps and the animals are gone. Now you have an infected cut because you were too tired to properly clean and bandage it. The system is collapsing, not because you did one big thing wrong, but because you cannot physically maintain all the necessary systems alone. Compare that to a family unit with 4 people. You can run 6-hour security shifts, and everyone still gets a full night of sleep. You can assign one person to water duty, one person to food production, one person to firewood and maintenance, and rotate based on skill sets and energy levels. When someone is having a bad day, others compensate. When something breaks, you have the time and mental bandwidth to fix it properly because you're not trying to do everything yourself. The labor is distributed. The cognitive load is shared. And the system remains functional because it is not dependent on one person operating at superhuman capacity 24/7 for months on end. Here is a real-world example that proves this point. Australian outback, 2006. A family of 4 gets stranded when their vehicle breaks down in remote desert. They have limited water, no food, and no communication. They are missing for 6 days before rescue. All 4 survive. Same region, 2009. A solo hiker gets stranded in similar conditions. He has more survival training than the family did. He has better gear. He is younger and fitter. He is found dead after 4 days. The difference? The family could rotate tasks. While one person stayed with the vehicle and maintained a signal fire, another could scout for water, another could create shade structures, and the 4th could rest to maintain energy. The solo hiker had to do everything himself. He exhausted himself trying to hike out. He depleted his energy reserves. He made poor decisions because he was operating in a constant state of stress and fatigue. And he died because he was trying to be 4 people at once. Now let me address the objection. I know you are thinking, what about OPSEC? What about the risk of betrayal? What about the fact that people are the most dangerous threat in a collapse scenario? Valid concerns. Completely valid. And this is where most preppers make a fatal logical error. They correctly identify that humans are a threat, and then they incorrectly conclude that the solution is to avoid all humans. That is like saying fire is dangerous, so you are never going to use fire. Or saying cars crash, so you are never going to drive. The solution is not avoidance. The solution is selectivity and management. You do not trust random people. You do not advertise your preps. You do not build your group out of strangers or casual acquaintances. You build out of family or carefully vetted individuals with aligned values, complementary skills, and years of established trust. The way you do this is you start now, not when things collapse, not when you are desperate. Now, you identify family members who take preparedness seriously. You have conversations with close friends who share your concerns. You vet people over years, not weeks. You test their reliability in small ways before you bet your life on them in big ways. Can they keep a secret? Do they follow through on commitments? Are they calm under pressure? Do they have skills that complement yours? Are they physically and mentally capable? Do they share your core values about security, resource management, and mutual support? If the answer to all those questions is yes, and if you have years of evidence backing it up, then you have a candidate for your survival group, and you formalize it. You train together. You drill scenarios. You store supplies cooperatively. You create protocols for decision-making, conflict resolution, and resource allocation. You build a system before you need it so that when crisis hits, you are not improvising. You are executing a plan. Here's the framework. Your ideal survival group is 4 to 8 people, small enough to maintain tight operational security and clear communication, large enough to provide skill redundancy and labor distribution. You need a minimum of 2 people with medical training, 2 people with weapons proficiency and tactical awareness, 2 people with food production knowledge, 2 people with mechanical and construction skills. Notice I said minimum of 2 for each skill. That is redundancy again. If your only medic gets injured, you are back to square one. If both your medics get injured, you still have people with enough cross-training to handle basics. Every person should have 2 to 3 primary skill sets and basic competency in all others. You train together quarterly at minimum. You run drills. You practice communication protocols. You test your gear and your plans. And you do this for years before you ever need it. Real talk. How many of you have been so focused on gear and supplies that you have ignored the human element? Drop a hand emoji if that is you. You are not alone. The prepper industry has trained us to focus on things instead of people because things are easier to sell. But now you know better. And knowing better means you have a responsibility to act. If you found value in this, if this challenged your assumptions in a useful way, smash that like button right now. We are building community that prioritizes real survival knowledge over ego-driven fantasies. Hit subscribe. Be here for the next one. Let me take this deeper. Let me show you the anthropological evidence that proves this is not just theory. Every single human society that has survived long-term crisis has done it through group cooperation, not individual strength, not solo resilience. Group cooperation with clear social structures, distributed labor, and mutual support systems. Hunter-gatherer tribes survived for hundreds of thousands of years not because individuals were tough, but because the tribe functioned as a collective organism. Agricultural societies built civilizations not because farmers were independent, but because they specialized labor and created interdependent communities. Even in modern collapse scenarios, the pattern holds. Post-Soviet collapse in the 1990s. The people who survived best were not the rugged individualists. They were extended families who pooled resources, shared labor, and maintained social bonds. Argentine economic collapse in 2001. Same pattern. Family networks and tight community groups weathered the crisis better than isolated individuals. You know what the data shows consistently across every single collapse scenario ever studied? Solo individuals either die quickly or they get absorbed into groups. There is no long-term solo survival. It does not exist in the historical record because humans are not biologically capable of sustaining it. And every time you see some survival story framed as a lone individual overcoming impossible odds, dig deeper. You will find that either the timeline was short, the situation was not actually full collapse, or there were support structures you were not told about. The guy who survived alone in the wilderness for 6 months, he had occasional resupply from the film crew documenting him. The guy who lived alone in Alaska for years, he was getting mail-order supplies twice a year. The hermit who needed nobody, he was raiding abandoned cabins for gear he did not have to produce himself. True solo survival, where you produce everything you need from scratch with no external inputs, is not a long-term viable strategy. It is a slow death that just takes longer than people think. Now, here is the part that is going to anger some of you. If you are still planning to go it alone, if you are still convinced that you are the exception, that you are tougher or smarter or better trained than everyone else, you are not preparing. You are fantasizing. You are LARPing. You are playing out a movie script in your head, where you are the protagonist who does not need anyone. And that fantasy is going to get you killed. The guys who actually survive, the ones who make it through real prolonged crisis, are not the action heroes. They are the network builders. They are the people who understand that strength is not independence. Strength is strategic interdependence. Strength is knowing who you can trust, what you bring to the table, and how to coordinate collective action under pressure. Let me give you one more historical example that perfectly encapsulates all 3 reasons we have covered. Jamestown Colony, 1607. 104 English settlers established the first permanent English settlement in North America. Within 6 months, half are dead. By spring of 1608, only 38 are alive. Why? They had supplies. They had weapons. They had skills. But they did not have social cohesion. They were a collection of individuals competing for status and resources instead of cooperating for survival. The gentlemen refused to do manual labor because it was beneath their social class. The laborers refused to follow leadership because they resented the class structure. Everyone was so focused on individual advantage that collective survival collapsed. Then supply ships arrived with new settlers and new leadership. Captain John Smith institutes strict communal labor policies. Everyone works. Everyone contributes. Food is distributed based on need and contribution, not social status. And the colony stabilizes, not because they got better gear, not because individuals became tougher, because they started functioning as a group with clear roles, mutual accountability, and shared purpose. Now compare that to Plymouth Colony, 1620. The Pilgrims land in Massachusetts with fewer supplies and harsher conditions in Jamestown. Half die in the first winter. Brutal. But the other half survives and the colony thrives. Why? Strong family units. Clear social structure. religious cohesion that created shared purpose. And critically, they formed an alliance with local Wampanoag tribe members who taught them region-specific survival skills. They built a network. They cooperated. They survived. Jamestown initially failed because it was a collection of individuals. Plymouth succeeded because it was a community from day one. Same time period. Same general challenges. Completely different outcomes based entirely on social structure. So what does this mean for you practically? It means you need to make a choice right now, not when things fall apart. Right now, are you going to continue investing in the lone wolf fantasy, stockpiling gear and supplies for a scenario where you'll statistically die within 90 days? Or are you going to start building the relationships and networks that actually determine survival? Are you going to have the hard conversations with family members about preparedness? Are you going to invest time in training with trusted friends? Are you going to develop the social infrastructure that turns a collection of individuals into a functional survival group? Because here is the reality. Gear is easy. You swipe a credit card and boxes show up at your door. Skills are harder, but still achievable. You take classes, you practice, you improve. But relationships, trust, coordinated group dynamics, that takes years. And you cannot buy it. You cannot shortcut it. You have to build it through consistent action over time. If you have been operating under the assumption that you're going to survive alone, I need you to hear this clearly. You are wrong. Not probably wrong. Not maybe wrong. Wrong with near statistical certainty. And the only question is whether you are willing to adjust your strategy based on evidence, or whether your ego is going to keep you committed to a plan that does not work. I am not saying this to be harsh. I am saying it because your life and the lives of people you love depend on you getting this right. Let me bring this home with a framework you can actually use. You understand now that families and groups outlast solo preppers because of skill redundancy, psychological resilience, and labor distribution. You understand that human biology and historical evidence both point to the same conclusion. Cooperation is not weakness. It is a survival strategy refined over hundreds of thousands of years. So, what do you do with that information? You build a network intentionally and carefully. You start with immediate family. Spouse, kids, parents, siblings. Have a conversation. Not the doomsday rant that makes you sound insane. The rational risk assessment conversation. You talk about supply chain vulnerabilities. You talk about natural disasters. You talk about the value of having backup plans and emergency preparations. You invite them into the process. You make it collaborative, not dictatorial. You identify who has what skills, who knows first aid, who can fix things, who is good with planning and logistics, who stays calm under pressure. You build the team based on complementary abilities. Next, you extend to trusted friends, not acquaintances, not co-workers you barely know, friends you have known for years, friends who have proven reliable, friends who share values. You test the waters. You talk about preparedness in casual conversation. You see how they respond. If they are dismissive or mocking, they are not candidates. If they are curious or already thinking along similar lines, you go deeper. You invite them to a range day. You do a camping trip where you practice skills. You see how they handle discomfort, how they problem solve, how they interact under mild stress. You are not just assessing skills. You are assessing character and compatibility. Because in a real crisis, you need people who can handle fear without panicking, who can take direction without ego battles, who can give input without constant conflict. Once you have identified your core group, you formalize it, not with paranoid bunker meetings and secret handshakes, with practical training and clear protocols. You establish communication plans. If the grid goes down, how you contact each other. You establish rally points. If you cannot stay in your homes, where do you meet? You establish resource pooling strategies. Who is storing what? Who has which skills? Who takes which responsibilities? You drill scenarios. You run tabletop exercises where you talk through what you would do if X happens. You identify gaps and weaknesses before they become life-threatening. And you do this quarterly at minimum, because skills atrophy, plans get outdated, people move or circumstances change. You need regular contact and regular training to maintain group cohesion and capability. You also need to address the hard topics now. Decision-making authority. In a crisis, who has final say when the group disagrees? You need to establish that in advance with buy-in from everyone. Resource allocation. If supplies run low, how do you decide who gets what? You need agreed-upon principles before emotions are high and stomachs are empty. Conflict resolution. When people disagree or tensions rise, what is the process for working through it? You need mechanisms that prevent small conflicts from fracturing the group. Security protocols. Who is armed? Who handles perimeter defense? What are the rules of engagement? You need clarity and training so that people do not hesitate or make catastrophic mistakes under pressure. These are not comfortable conversations, but they are necessary conversations. And having them now in calm conditions prevents disaster later when stress is high and stakes are lethal. Now, let me give you the reality check. This is not a guarantee. This is not a magic formula that ensures survival. Groups have their own risks, personality conflicts, betrayal, operational security leaks, someone making a selfish decision that endangers everyone. These are real risks, but they are manageable risks. You mitigate them through careful selection, through established protocols, through ongoing training and communication. And critically, the risks of group survival are still statistically lower than the certainty of solo failure. You are not choosing between a perfect safe option and a risky option. You are choosing between a risky option with 70% survival probability and a risky option with 10% survival probability. The math is not complicated. So here is your action plan for this week. First, identify your inner circle. Write down the names of family members and close friends who are potential survival group members. Second, have one conversation. Just one. Pick the person on that list you are closest to and have an honest conversation about preparedness. Test the waters. See where they are mentally. Third, assess your own skills honestly. What do you bring to a group? What are your gaps? Fourth, commit to one training activity in the next 30 days. A first aid class, a firearms course, a primitive skills workshop, something that makes you more valuable to a team. And fifth, if you're still operating under the lone wolf mindset, challenge yourself. Ask why. Is it because you genuinely think it is the best strategy, or is it because you like the fantasy? Is it because of evidence, or is it because of ego? Honest question. What is the one action you are taking this week to build or strengthen your survival network? Comment below. I read every single one. And if you think I am wrong about solo survival being a death sentence, good. Drop your counterargument. Best comment gets pinned and a detailed response. Because I want you to challenge this. I want you to think critically. But I also want you to base your strategy on evidence, not fantasy. Hit the bell. Your survival odds depend on this. If this video saved you from making a fatal strategic mistake, share it with one person who needs to hear it. Not for me, for them. They will thank you when it matters. Stay smart, stay connected, or stay a statistic. Your choice. One more thing. See that progress bar? Not quite done. 99% leave before this. The 1% who stay get the bonus nobody else sees. The single biggest mistake survival groups make that gets everyone killed. Comment inner circle if you found this. Welcome to the 1%.